Welcome to WTPN, We the People Network. It is Wednesday, April 24th, and we are going to commence shortly with Rodger Dowdell and the common law training.
May I?
Yes, please.
Connie in Clay County, Missouri, and it's not for that, but I didn't know if it was announced that Missouri is now assembled along with Michigan and Alaska.
Outstanding. Congratulations to Missouri.
Yeah.
Well done.
And congratulations.
Very well done.
I yield.
Okay, folks, this is very significant. A lot of folks worked a lot of hours going around the state, getting the country settled. How many counties did you need to get settled? Oh, I'm sorry.
We needed 15.
15. Okay, great. And how many counties do you have in total?
At the moment, 15.
No, I mean, how many counties are in the state in total?
Oh, total is another 99. We figure we need 70 more to be completely sure.
Got it.
And that's
congratulations.
what next.
That's great. Okay, I do want to, if no one else has any other questions, I do want to focus the discussion on a continuation of the topic of common law property rights. And this is a very, very important area that we've got to all pitch in and learn together a lot more, because everything has been turned upside down with the de facto system. The justice system is really filled with injustice, and lawyers are not lawyers, they're attorneys. And, well, there's a few people who practice law, but mostly practice statute. At any rate, so let's start out by asking a fundamental question about property rights. Let's say you were fortunate enough and you bought a condo along the shore of a lake or the ocean or the Gulf Coast. And you paid a price for that condo, a market price, and it's on the 6th floor of a condo building. Everything's going along well for 5 years, and then somebody announces plans to build a 20-story hotel across the road from you on the beach side of the road. You're on the other side of the road. And if they do that, it will block your view. So where does the common law come in? How would a problem like this get handled with a de jure common law system in place? Can anyone help me? Any idea? Yes, please.
Ed, Palm Beach County. Two things. Well, three things. Definition of property. Number two, the owner of the house that is, I'm not sure whether it's a house or another apartment building, is going to be impeded by the construction. If it's a house, then I could say then it would be owned by a man or a woman or both. If it's an apartment building, that would be in a corporation or an association. So how would common law in the latter case apply, if at all?
Well, let's say, for the sake of this argument, let's say it is a condo and it's owned by a man and a woman together. So, common law yes, please.
So if it's a man and woman that own a specific unit in an association, to my way of thinking, the whole association has got to got to take a stand, but it would be under, it would be in commercial law, admiralty law. I don't see where they have standing in common law, quite honestly. I yield.
Okay, well, remember to have any case, to have a claim in common law. It's not a case, it's a claim. There must be a harmed, wronged, or trespassed living man or woman. Now let's assume they go forward and get permission from the planning board, then the zoning board, to build a 20-story tower hotel, which will block, say, 100% of your view of the water. Are you harmed or not? Well, and when you argue that the condo association would have to take a stand, remember the condo association is a fiction. What can a fiction do in common law? Nothing. What can they exactly? So the question becomes now they start the construction and they build the building, and you are now suffering from an obstructed view. Have you been harmed, wronged, or trespassed? Anybody? Yeah. Yes, please.
I would say there's been a trespass because you're not able to enjoy your property as it was when we purchased. I yield.
I agree with Tom's thinking, and I agree that there is harm. And in my opinion, you can figure out the amount of harm by finding out roughly how much what's the market price for a condo that doesn't have a water view, that is similar in size, or find out the per square foot price of it and multiply it for the differences of square feet adjusted. But what you're looking at is the economic harm caused by the loss of view. That's quantifiable. Your property has been depreciated by an action of someone else without your consent. Now, who's involved in causing this harm? Who are all the players involved in causing this harm? Would you say that? Yes, please. Tom.
Well, that the planning board, the commissioners, and the developer would be the top three. Thank you.
What about the contractor? What about anybody? Planning board, zoning board. Yeah, right. Zoning board. Yep. Okay. So you have a claim for economic damages in common law for such a problem. The real sticky problems we're going to face are where there's no way to figure out the economic value of the damage. And in which case, if you can't, then you're pretty much, as a grand jury, necessary investigator, you can't restore anybody if you can't figure out how much they suffered. They've been harmed. So let's switch topics now over to Mary. And yes, please.
Palm Beach County again. Just to comprehend this correctly, common law is superior relative to the other types of law. So, if the condo owner can file a claim against the corporation, in fact, in this particular situation, am I correct?
The way the common law claim would work would be against the people acting as the official officers of the entities that caused the harm. It'd be It'd be a claim against them in their private capacity.
Okay. So basically, under common law, the harmed party can file a claim for compensation, but they must cite the man or woman involved at all levels, whether it's within the government, the development board, the contractor, etc. Correct?
Right. In their the man or the woman acting as blah.
So essentially, we don't need to be concerned about the fact that they would throw back at the claimant the fact that it is corporated, they're working in corporation. So this would just cut through it like a hot knife through butter, basically.
Exactly. So
Okay.
so where would such a claim go? Where would you record such a claim? If you were the condo owner, you create your claim, you've got the economic damage. Where would you put it?
Yeah.
Well, you'd either, yes, please.
May I? Connie?
I
Like
yield
Nelly?
to the lady.
Go ahead, Connie.
Okay. I would think the grand jury.
Exactly. The four administrative investigators for the grand jury would be the ideal place to start. And they have a duty to do what? What's the first step? They got to investigate the claim. Then they've got to do what they think, in their judgment, is the best avenue forward to try to end the controversy, to restore the peace.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
At Palm Beach again. Before it actually goes to the grand jury, the claims to be filed with the individuals involved with the trespass and given them a certain period of time, 10 days, business days, etc., to respond, like a petition to address a grievance, the claim, the prayer, and the remedy you're looking for before taking it to the grand jury. The grand jury would be the next highest place to take it to. So I'm thinking at the initial level, that's the way I would go.
Well, let's talk about it if we have the de jure grand jury and the de jure common law code of record up and running in this county. Right. The first step is there's a three-step process in common law. You send a correspondence, which is a nicely worded letter saying, please fix this. And then when they don't respond, you send 3 notices of escalating urgency, and the third notice is that you now consider this a trespass because you warned them not to do it, they did it anyway, and now you're harmed. Okay? And then if they still don't do anything, then you would take that evidence of your correspondence and your 3 notices and your evaluation of your damages, how much you've been harmed, and what you need for restoration. And then you would take it to the administrative investigators for the grand jury. Or alternatively, you can skip the grand jury and take your claim to the common law court of record. In other words, controversies can be handled with a grand jury or without a grand jury. They don't have to go through the grand jury. Does that make sense, folks? Remember, the whole reason we have a court system is to obsolete dueling. Get rid of the idea that the way we're going to settle our controversies is shooting bullets at each other.
May I?
Yes, please.
Yes, Palm Beach, that's breaking news. I thought we had to go through the grand jury first before we actually took something to the common law court of record. So thank you for the clarification. I yield.
Yeah. No, you can do that if you don't need help with the grand jury because you know you're right and you can do the math calculation on the valuation that you were harmed and all that. The grand jury is very useful against high status people, whether they're in government or in corporations, right? A grand jury is very helpful. It's difficult in today's environment for any one person to try to stand up and get justice anywhere in the de facto system. It's just basically not, it's best I can tell, not available. So if you have the capability to press your claim, it's called press your claim in a common law court of record, you can do that. Remember, you're a king or queen of your own domain and you have no subject. So if you're competent, go for it. If you're not, use a grand jury. Okay, so let's, yes, please.
Sorry, and again, Palm Beach County. When you say confident, it's very important people comprehend, and I should comprehend as well. It's not a question of hubris, it's a question of having undeniable evidence that reaches the level of indictment. So it's like very, very high level, undeniable evidence, and then you can take it to a common law court of record. Am I correct? I yield.
The best evidence is undeniable evidence, meaning that whoever you are in a controversy with, using their own documents as evidence of what they're doing wrong. So if a government entity is working to take somebody's property unconstitutionally, and they talk about it in the press, and they put out a notice of what they're doing, then that's undeniable evidence. That's gorgeous evidence. It's not the only type of evidence, but it's undeniable because you're using their own words and their own documents, their own speeches. That means they can't deny it. Otherwise, if they try to deny it, it's perjury. Okay, I need everybody to mute yourself. I'm hearing a lot of background noise. So let's go forward now to any questions on common law, grand jury, or assembly. If not, I'd like to move on to, let's stay in the property domain and property rights. Do you have any property rights to your body?
Yeah.
Yes, please.
It's Palm Beach County again. The answer is yes. And what I'm focusing on mostly, and people may not comprehend this or realize it, that our children until the age of 18 are our property.
Exactly. So this gets a little sticky and a little weird because of the way we've been brought up to think about ourselves. But I've got to ask the basic question, who are we? Who are we? So if you look at your arm and you look at the flesh on your arm, we can trace all of the atoms to plants and animals running around the surface of the earth that either your parents or yourself ate. If those cells are part of you, if that's really you, then that means you were spread out across the surface of the planet. How can that be you if you're spread out already across the surface of the planet? So your body isn't considered you. You are really your consciousness. And you have a complete ownership right over your body. Does that make sense, folks? So if somebody mandates a vaccine and they come at you with an injection, you say, no. I didn't give my consent. You cannot do it. Any questions or comments on that? you are ideally considered your consciousness. And your body, we've been trained to think of ourselves as our body, but our bodies are really our vessels for our consciousness. And we do have complete ownership rights on our body, and as Ed said, on our kids too. Till they're 18. Any questions or comments?
May I?
Yes, please.
Oh, Laura from Missouri. Could you maybe expound on that a bit with some sort of an example, perhaps?
Okay, let me think about that for a second. While I'm thinking about it, let me just add, where is your consciousness and what is your consciousness? Well, it turns out your consciousness is actually a field, an energy field produced primarily by your brain, your heart, and your pineal gland, which is part of your brain. Your brain, your heart, and your pineal gland. Where does it reside? Well, we are all educated to think it resides within our skull, but it doesn't. It isn't. It is a field around us. That's our consciousness, not within our skull. So how would that work? Well, one example would be, no, that wouldn't work. Okay, well, where this comes into play a lot, and it's not an example like you're asking, so I'm going to have to get back with you on an example about consciousness and property rights. But where it comes in play is the de facto wants you to be the surety for your all cap name. And when they ask a question, like they bring you into court, into their de facto court, and the judge reads your name, Rodger Dowdell, off, my answer to them is, well, which one are you looking for? Are you looking for the fictional all cap name, which my birth date created? Oh, you got to go ask them if that's what you want. Or, by the way, here's a birth certificate that has that all caps name, and there it is. Do what you will with it. Do you want the living man or woman in the cellular structure? Or are you really talking about my consciousness? Consciousness is equivalent of awareness of your environment. The higher you raise your consciousness, the more you're aware of what's going on in your environment. In general, most humans walking around the streets today are running anywhere from 20 to 25% of the functional capability of their consciousness. When you raise your consciousness up to 60 to 65% of the functional capability, you can diagnose and fix your own medical problem. When you raise your consciousness up to 80% of its functional capability, you are like the masters that the history books and the Bible talk about. So consciousness is pretty darn important, and we're going through a period of time now where the whole planet, the vibration as measured by the human resonance, is increasing, and our vibrations as a result need to be increasing too. We need to be increasing our consciousness, which is going to help us go into what people are calling the fifth density, 5D. Now, I am by no means an expert in this, but I am studying it. So it is, I think, a very important field for us to understand. In common law, yes, please.
Sorry. I'm just trying to equate this whole business about men and women relative to the system. And I'm looking at the assembly document that we have members signed, saying the Declaration of Unalienable Rights held by Indigenous power. Couldn't this be used in a legal setting to make the point that you were making, fiction versus living man or woman? I yield. Absolutely, and to that end, anywhere I go on travel, I bring those documents with me. I always have those with me. Put them in plastic seat protectors and stick them in my backpack and keep them. That's evidence that if, for example, as simple as a traffic stop, if you were stopped, you could say, okay, well, you know, you've got this ticket drafted up, but it's all capital. That's not me.
May I?
Yes, please.
Connie in Clay County, you said documents. What documents are they that you take with you?
There's 3 of them that I needed to autograph to become a member of the Assembly, State Florida General Assembly. One of them is, Ed, can you refresh my memory on the name of the 3 documents?
Yes, Ed, the one that I mentioned, the Declaration of Unalienable Rights held by Indigenous power. The other one is the Declaration of Independence. And the other one is the Dual Covenant of Office. I yield.
Thank you. Those 3 documents, autographed, wet ink autograph, I keep them with me everywhere I go. Not run around town, but if I travel. By the way, I also keep with me my passport. And if I need to identify myself, I use my passport. I keep it in a Ziploc bag in my back pocket. And the reason I do that is in the front page of your passport, it states from the Secretary of State of the United States, please give this citizen/national all aid and assistance as necessary. So that is where you have the evidence that you are not a citizen. You can, it's not hard evidence, but you can use that and point it out to anyone who's challenging you that they think the statutes apply to you. You can use your passport and just say, no, I'm a national. They don't apply. I'm not a citizen. May I? And if they, yes, please.
Again, Ed Palm Beach, sorry, just for clarification, citizen applies to men and women that live in the District of Columbia, work for the federal government, or, yeah, and that's basically it. Am I correct? I yield.
Unfortunately, no. It's meant to apply to anyone who is employed by any government. In other words, say in 1790, for the sake of argument, you're a farmer, and you say, now it's time for me to do my public duty, and I will work as dog catcher for the county for 2 years. If you were to do that. Now, when you go to work that day as a dog catcher, you are a citizen. you need to obey all the statutes. They apply to you. When you go home at night, you're no longer a citizen. You're in your private capacity, and you're free, sovereign, independent American. So the way the system the founders set up works is anytime you want, anytime it's to your advantage, you can put down your rights and be a U.S. citizen if it's to your advantage. But then 5 minutes later, you say, "No, I made a mistake. I'm going back. I'm not going to be I'm not going to be in the capacity of a citizen. I'm back in my capacity as a free, sovereign, independent American, known in your system as a national or an American national." Does that make sense? Because remember, we, the people, are the highest ranking sovereigns in the system. As long as we don't cause harm to anyone or their property, we're good to go. And if we cause harm, we've got to restore the victim. That's as simple as it gets. It's a beautiful system.
May I?
Yes, please.
Laura from Missouri. Could you go back just a second to the consciousness part and the raising of it? How is it that is done? I yield.
Okay, that's a great question. There are different methods, and what I'll do is put some links up on the Telegram page where you can learn a lot more about this if you'd like to. My personal experience. I was on vacation at the time, and I was just in a very reflective mood, and I had just celebrated my 70th birthday. And I asked myself the question, when did getting mad, angry, resentful, hateful, any of those real negative emotions, when did they ever help me solve a problem? I look back at 70 years of history, and I couldn't think of one time those negative reactions ever helped me solve a problem. I said, okay, I'm not doing them anymore. And my wife warned me, being a retired registered nurse, she said, look, don't suppress your emotions. I said, that's fair, I won't suppress them. So for the first week after making that commitment to myself, I kept falling into my program. I've been programmed for those negative emotions. Totally programmed since a little kid. From 0 to 7 is when you get most of your programming. So I said, okay, Rodger, how are you going to fix this? You've been programmed to react in negative ways. What are you going to do? And I came up with a simple idea. I said, okay, before you react to anything, pause and make a conscious decision. Notice the word conscious decision. Are you going to react in love? Are you going to react in compassion? Or are you going to react in both? Boom. It was like a light switch on the wall flipped. I got rid of all of those negative emotions, and my consciousness went up. I had not planned on that helping my consciousness. I was just trying to get rid of what I considered wasteful emotional energy, reacting to things that I had no control over. You'd be listening to a radio program and hear the governor did a real stupid thing. And I get upset about it a little bit. No, that's a big waste of energy, right? So what happened when I put that question in is I stopped reacting and I started observing things. Big difference from being programmed to react. I still observe everything that's going on, but I just don't, I'm not emotionally invested in it. then I can consciously think through, okay, well, what's an appropriate reaction and or corrective action? But for the most part, it's not something now that if I read a nasty headline on a newspaper or magazine, or I don't listen to radio or TV much anymore. But so it's like I'm observing, I'm engaged and observing, but I'm not reacting. For me, it was a surprise side benefit that my consciousness jumped up. Yeah. Yes, please.
I had Palm Beach County. Just for sake of responding to that question, in order to raise one's consciousness, there are a lot of methods, and obviously prayer, meditation, going out in nature. I've been practicing Qigong and Tai Chi for 20 years. I started off with yoga and Reiki. So, there's a lot of different ways, the transcendental meditation, etc. So there's a lot of opportunities, and what I have found over the years is that through my practice, I attracted people, opportunities, and circumstances that were to my benefit, and I can obviously respond in the same way for the community. And it also creates a field, if you will, that means that because the consciousness is at a certain frequency, people and circumstances of lower frequency get repelled, or they cannot connect with you. So, aside from the physiological benefits of doing all those practices, so that's what I wanted to say.
So we all have been programmed since we were kids. We watched our parents react to things. We watched our siblings, our friends and neighbors, and we said, okay, this is how society works, and okay, I'll fit right in. And then you learn that, in essence, just like a computer's program, you signed up for a whole bunch of programs that you didn't create. They're not yours. So how do we teach our kids what kind of individual do they want to be? And a lot of people are just in a mode that life happens to them versus you happening to life. And the bottom line is that when you wake up and realize that we're all programmed, you actually, throughout this whole process, have a choice of what are your attributes going to be. And I know throughout my life, I'd have, say, a teacher in high school or a professor in college or a coach or something. I'd say, look at that attribute. I really appreciate that attribute. And then I would make it part of my portfolio. That's how I formed myself. Just looking at the attributes and some of the attributes around me that I grew up in, I really didn't like. Didn't respect them at all. So I did them. Okay, so back to the rules of the common law. We've got the grand jury. We've got the assembly. Remember, the primary role of the assembly is what purpose? What is its functional purpose?
And Hernando, may I?
Please.
This stage of the game is to educate and gather evidence.
Right. And then in the de jure, once we're back in the full de jure, Tom, what is the role of the assembly?
To hold back in the de jure, to hold our government and our government officials accountable.
For sure, but that's a minor role compared to the real important role, which is to create the explicit will of the people. We need the assembly, which is nonpartisan. It's not Republican, Democrat, Independent, Libertarian. It's none of those. It is just we, the people, coming together. We select a moderator. We select a scribe to take the minutes. We elect a treasurer and maybe a sergeant at arms, and we're good to go for the meeting. And now, anything that someone makes a motion, it needs a second, we debate it. Anything that gets 50% plus one vote, as long as it's within the bounds of the Constitution, the de jure Constitution, then it becomes it changes from being a motion, it gets morphed into a resolution, meaning we the people have resolved this issue. This is our will. We don't want that new high school built, but we do want that bridge built. This is our decision. All the important decisions in your county, from the taxes to what the spending is going to be, what the policies are going to be, all of those come from your assembly, the will of the people. And that's why we're going to be focusing more time and energy on teaching how does an assembly make a good decision. Because when you get a group of people together and everybody's got their own ideas and their own experiences, how do you meld that into one voice? You can imagine if I went into the public works director in my county and I said, well, I need you to do this and this and not do that. And then next week, Tom, you went in and said, no, Rodger's full of beans. You got to do this one, right? We'd have chaos. So that's why they came up with the assembly. The assembly is to sort out the priorities and to make them explicit by passing motions that become resolutions, and then we serve the public servants with the resolutions. Now, say the public servants don't do what we tell them to do. We instruct them. The word in the Florida Constitution is we instruct our representatives. Say they don't do it. Well, the thing that Tom did talk about is we've got to provide oversight on all of the government entities. Oversight. When we find evidence that they're not following the will of the people, we gather that evidence and give it to the grand jury. The grand jury has two very important tools. It has the indictment and the presentment. The assembly doesn't have those tools. Grand jury does. And they're very, very powerful, especially in a situation like today where you've got a de facto government operating. The de facto government officials ask the county attorney typically, what do we do? And they say, do not engage. So if you use your grand jury today, like Ed said before, we only use our grand jury as a defensive tool. What do we mean defensive tool? We mean when the de facto county government breaches its oath of office to support the Constitution and instead does something that hurts the people, the grand jury can step in and hold them accountable. Okay, I think we've got a lot of noise on the background there. I think it might be. Okay. Tom, are you on mute? Tom Sykes, could you please mute?
Yes, I am on mute. Not now, but I was.
Okay. Thank you. Someone else is creating a lot of noise, background noise. Someone else has an open mic. Please mute yourself. Okay, so now you've got the presentment. When you use the presentment, when you deliver the presentment to the last named accused, the presentment has the names of the accused, the crimes they're accused of committing, and the evidence. And that's where you want your undeniable evidence. You can get it. It's very important. That starts a 40-day clock. After 40 days, you get one of three responses. The best response is that the individual says, wow, I didn't know I was causing harm. I will restore the injured party and stop that harmful behavior. That's perfect. Or the public servant may say, well, here's my airplane ticket and my hotel receipt. I was in Las Vegas when this thing occurred, so you must be looking for the other Rodger Dowdell on the other side of town. Or what is most common, if you're dealing with a public service today, they are told do not engage. When they don't answer a presentment, at the start of the 41st day, they, by their silence, convert themselves from being accused to being convicted. There's no need for a trial by jury. Their silence has convicted them. And then the grand jury would create the ledger required to restore the victims. And then in today's world, in a de facto world, you would place that claim against the insurance, the surety bond insurance policy. But we really don't, we wouldn't do that today with exceptional circumstances. There may be some. But remember, we're up against an organized crime network controlling both parties, and they are operating however they want to operate, regardless whether they have an oath of office or not. They're ignoring the rule of law and doing whatever they want to. This network is so deep and so powerful, we the people should not try to fix it or reform it in any way. Like Tom said earlier on the call, we need to focus on collecting evidence of the wrongdoing, but most importantly, teaching our county assemblies and our state assemblies due process of the common law and how to make good decisions with multiple people together. How do you wrap your mind around a difficult problem? Everybody's got differences of opinion. How do you get to the facts? How do you evaluate the facts in such a manner that everybody can agree and you can come up with a consensus? It's hard work. Yes, please.
And Palm Beach County. I just want to focus for a minute on men or women who are in prison and basically wound up with jail sentence because, you know, they might have had a very bad attorney or public defender or whatever the case is, and they've been they were in essentially the legal system, right? Could we, if we are approached, consider a case under common law, despite the fact that there has been a decision, sentence decided in order to, and then fine, assuming that there is no crime, obviously under common law, nullify that decision, and would common law allow us to get them freed from prison? I yield.
It depends when you're talking about. Are you talking about when the de facto is still in force, or are you talking about military martial law, or are you talking about de jure common law?
The first one, where de facto is still in control. I yield.
Now, you can't really reach into that corporation, which the prisons are all privately owned for-profit corporations. The jails are, it's a real mess. We found one jail up in Marion County was on land owned by a judge. So he was collecting rent. And he had obviously a conflict of interest. So right now, you don't want to do anything other than the things like the 8822 IRS form that is just further evidence that you're not a citizen. AO 91 to the provost marshal to report public servants that are ignoring their oath or not in compliance with the Constitution. But at this date, there's a lot of lower level enforcers. So even though the top levels of the deep state have pretty much been already addressed, these lower level people are programmed for violence against we the people if they get sent the signal. And just it's premature for us to go into the prisons and try to take anyone out. I do highly recommend that each county get their grand jury ready for going in and doing an audit of all of the court records of everybody that's in prison. And like Ed said, if there isn't a crime where they've harmed someone or their property, if it's, say, they were smoking a marijuana cigarette or something like that, get them out of prison, send them home to their families and to their careers. Our estimate is about 80% of the folks in our prison system do not deserve to be there. They did not commit a crime under the common law. Any other questions or comments? If not, I'd like to still say, please be thinking more and more about property rights because it's so essential. We do know things like Child Protective Services is involved in some nasty stuff often, not all the time. Sometimes they do good stuff, but often with kids, and kids are property in common law. And no one has the right to take our property. Imagine if everybody knew their rights, pretty much all of the de facto, how should I put it? It's really a large commercial business being run as if it's our justice system. It would be over. We would just refuse to participate. What are they going to do? Put us all in jail? I don't think so. Any other? Yes, please.
And again, probably saying one last question. Would it not be judicious on our part, and I'm thinking it's probably not, to go to our town meetings or county board meetings and say, we may want to rethink about what you're doing because common law is coming, and they give them a warning, a thought across the bow, I yield. It's probably a good idea in the form of a notice or in the form of a PFAR, a petition for redress of grievances before taxes. In fact, you could draft for your assembly a petition for redress of grievances that basically has the points of any place they're doing things that are outside the bounds of your organic state constitution and the original Constitution for the United States of America. So any place their activity, and in most county governments, about our estimate is about 80 or 90% of what they're doing, they have no delegated authority for. I've interviewed 5 different sheriffs across the state of Florida.
and others have interviewed sheriff's deputies and other public servants. For the most part, they think they're doing the right thing. They have no clue about the system of self-government the founders created. They have no clue about the people's rights. They've been brought up in this system, and the system's just gotten worse and worse and worse their whole life. But they're dependent upon it for their income. One of the big questions is going to be, if we reduce the governments locally, statewide, and federally to only those areas where they have delegated authority, our estimates are you're going to be reducing the spending on government by 80 to 90%. What that implies is that your county has got to get good at drafting up contracts and monitoring contracts. The real administrators of those contracts can be your public servants. You know, you've got somebody in the role today of you got to build a new road. They usually will design it and then go out for bids, so different contractors can bid on it. And then they have people who understand contract law and how to monitor and provide oversight for contracts. We're going to have to get good at that in our counties and our state assemblies. May I? Okay, folks. Thank you. Yes, please. One last question or suggestion. We have decided here in Palm Beach County to reach out to not only motivated patriots, but to really look for specific talent, accountants, people that are good at certain skills in products or services, so that we can create, in essence, a reference point for people to use. But the accounting, you know, when you think of the CAFRs, the accounting accounts, so that's a huge one. I yield. It is, and one county that I'm familiar with here in southwestern Florida, you're looking at it today is a $5 billion per year revenue business. It's a big business with a lot of complexity. How do you pare that down by 80 to 90% without creating chaos? You really have got to think these things through, folks. Figure out where your first reductions are going to be, and how are you going to compensate for unintended consequences? Okay, I've got to say good night. Thank you very much for your support. Peace, joy, and love to everybody. And I will post some, I'll ask Jules to post some links on Consciousness. Have a great night, folks.